What a beautiful singing. Matthew chapter 27. Our devotional thought, and then we will have our song of encouragement to follow. Matthew chapter 27. As you know, when you get to the last 2 or 3 chapters of any of the gospel accounts, you're looking at the betrayal, the arrest, the crucifixion of our Lord, the burial, and then, of course, thankfully, the resurrection. In Matthew chapter 27, in verse 1, beginning, when the morning came, all the chief priests and elders of the people plotted against Jesus to put him to death. When they had bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate, the governor. Drop down now to verse 45. Matthew 27 is a long chapter. If you drop down to verse 45, Jesus is on the cross on a Friday. It's during the daylight hours. However, we begin reading in verse 45 that from the 6th hour until the 9th hour there was darkness over all the land. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, that is, my God, why have you forsaken me? Some of those who stood there when they heard that said, this man is calling for Elijah. Immediately one of them ran and took a sponge, filled it with sour wine, and put on a reed and offered it to him to drink. The rest said, let him alone. Let us see if Elijah will come to save him. In verse 50, Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. Then behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth quaked and the rocks split. And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the graves after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. From this reading, the first couple of verses, we know that the Pharisees were behind this, those who were plotting to put Jesus to death. And in the reading of verses 54 through 53, we notice that there's this darkness over all the land. In the hours when it's not supposed to be dark. That's one. And then you drop down to verse 51. The veil of the temple is torn. And then verse 52, here's your third one. The graves were opened, so you have people coming out. The graves being opened, many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And then you drop on down to verse 62. On the next day, which followed the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered to Pilate, saying, Sir, we remember while he was still alive how that the deceiver said, after 3 days I will rise. Therefore command that the tomb be made secure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples come by night and steal him away, and say to the people, he has risen from the dead. You get into chapter 28 and verse 11. Chapter 28 and verse 11, after the resurrection of Jesus. Now, while they were going, behold, some of the guard came into the city and reported to the chief priests all things that had happened. When they assembled with the elders and consulted together, they gave a large sum of money to the soldiers, saying, tell them his disciples came at night and stole him away while he slept. Now, you think about this from these 2 chapters. We sometimes talk about the hardness of a heart. Here is the hardness of a heart. This is it. The Bible talks about it. You can see it in Pharaoh. You can see it elsewhere, but certainly you see it here. The hard heart that will not obey God. It does not matter what you put before them. They will not obey God. Darkness in the land during the daylight hours. The veil of the temple being torn from top to bottom. The earthquake, the rock split, the graves open. Now the soldiers saying he's no longer there, and so we'll pay you. We'll give you this large sum of money, and we'll take care of it. In verse 14, and if this comes to the governor's ears, we will appease him and make you secure. How much do you have to hate God to see all of this and yet still not believe? One quick point. Each day that you choose to not spend time with God, you're going in that direction. You might be the strongest Christian in this room right now, tonight. But each day that you go without God, then you're going in a direction of the Pharisees. You're going in a direction away from Him. And each day you delay obeying Him, maybe you're one here tonight who has been putting it off. Each day that you delay in obeying Him, you're going in the direction of a hard heart. You're going in the direction of a Pharisee. You're going in the direction of that attitude, at least. And it could get to the point where there's not anything that anyone could say or do. There's not anything that the Bible could teach that could cause you to turn around and obey God. Don't delay. If there's anything that we can help you to do to meet your Lord in obedience, find salvation in Him, and go to heaven, please let us help you while we stand and while we sing.